Well, thank you very much, Natasha. Can I also acknowledge that we meet on the land of the Kaurna people, and I think that they would be truly chuffed at us meeting here for this important topic. They would really understand that this is a place of coming together and of conferring on all of the contemporary issues relating to this important topic, from which you just heard the sobering statistics by our Federal Minister. May I acknowledge Minister O'Dwyer particularly. Can I say a big thank you? One of the other important initiatives happening in Canberra is the inquiry into dowry abuse. South Australia has put a submission. We have living, breathing victims here in South Australia, and sometimes these topics have been taboo. You've opened the lid on that. We look forward to the findings in due course. Financial abuse for mature-aged women, particularly, is another area which I know that your colleagues are looking into. And it is time, when groups such as this come together, when they assess the contemporary dynamics, participate in the resolutions of how we deal with it in 2018 plus, and not be frightened to tackle those difficult issues. So well done. To our other distinguished guests, and of course Natasha is our MC. I think this is her first and last job as MC. She's exhausted already. But it is a great pleasure, of course, on behalf of the state government to address you very briefly tonight. I'm probably the warm-up act, because tomorrow you're having the Premier come along, Stephen Marshall. Possibly he's the smartest man I work with, but by no question he's also South Australia's most eligible bachelor. So keep a look out. So the purpose of tonight really is to just outline a few of the initiatives that we've undertaken here in South Australia, and one in particular within the preventative theme is to mention the South Australia's Domestic Violence Disclosure Scheme trial, which starts today. It has been a trial that we got up running very quickly after the election. It speaks to the commitment of the police, who are very important partners in this. Obviously our own advisors in the department and my ministerial colleagues to achieve this milestone. Particularly last week, Michelle Lempsick, who's here with us tonight. Where are you, Michelle? Who's my colleague in the Cabinet, Minister for Human Services, probably about the toughest gig you can get in government, but she's just swum to it like a duck to water, I can tell you. It's very refreshing to have her there. But also Carolyn Powell, who's down here in the front. Stephen Marshall had a very clear vision when he came into government, and one of our highest priorities was to deal with the question of family and domestic violence. And accordingly, he determined that he would have an Assistant Minister exclusively to work in this space. So not only have we got a number of people in the Cabinet who have a direct and indirect responsibility for this issue, but coordinating a lot of that is Carolyn. We were together last week when we launched the scheme and met with those who are actually going to work in the space to receive the inquiries, help with applications to be made, and of course provide the support both in the lodgement of applications but also in the receipt of information. Most of you will be familiar with all the elements involving disclosure schemes, but the differences in the South Australian model, which have been prompted largely here by the fact that we're one of the few states that doesn't have any state privacy law. We have had to make some modifications. We've been able to develop a very responsive scheme which will operate across the entire state and which builds on the support of our specialist Women's Services, and I'm pretty sure I saw Maria here tonight. Here she is, right at the front. Excellent. She's going to have the job to actually do all the work with this, and her team, which is fantastic because one of the most highly qualified people we have in South Australia in this area. So I thank her in advance for doing that. Obviously, we'll closely monitor this scheme. I think it's important that whatever we do, if it works, all the rest of you know about it. If it doesn't work, still all the rest of you need to know about it. Because otherwise we can't learn from each other and have the most contemporary and effective models of support. We're obviously keen to continue to publicly consult, and I think that's important for all of us in our respective jurisdictions, because there are slightly different demands and different challenges. We have a large area of regional South Australia with only a small scattered population, but they are equally vulnerable. And so we've had to tailor-make a number of our enforcement and protective agencies to accommodate that. There are some other measures where we're introducing the creation of a new offence of non-fatal strangulation, allowing video evidence to be admissible in court, expanding the definition of aggravated domestic abuse to include more types of relationships, and increasing the penalties for breaching intervention orders. And I know some of you, having spoken to you tonight, have already looked at a graduated penalty base for those things. We've been trying to work very hard here to ensure that stage one is that when there is a breach, there is some action. And when there is some action, it's followed through, and we have some chance of that tool being effective. I'm not rushing such an important piece of legislation without prioritising it, given its significance and the dire need for change. These will be, though, much needed reforms. As Attorney General and as a woman and a mother of sons, I might say, they have a very clear message. Very clear message. Disinheritances will be in that conversation. I'm pleased to be able to lead reforms that will have a real difference to our women and children in the community, and including my daughter-in-laws and my granddaughters. Because after all, in every family, we can know, you know, because you're the professionals in this space, across Australia, this is at every level of the community and of background, of gender, there is that vulnerability. We all know that, so we must be alert and train our sons well. My great-grandmother had 14 children, 7 boys and 7 girls. She said the girls are very good, the boys can be useful, but you have to train them early. But can I just say that, like many of you, I've read more than my fair share of coroner's reports. And when a woman and or children are victims of violence which results in death or serious disfigurement, to read the extraordinary amount of trauma in that family has gone through, I think what else can be done before another woman needs to go through this. In South Australia we had 24 deaths last year, which per capita is pretty high. 10 of those were husbands or wives killing each other. 5 women killed their husbands or partners, and 5 men killed their husbands or partners. Now that raw data doesn't tell us everything about the profile, but it does tell us that at least in 10 of those cases, where the victim was not only known to each other, but either having or had a personal sexual relationship, that we've got a serious problem. So it's heartening, of course, to see that many of you here today demonstrating your commitment to ending the violence against women and children. So many women and children are depending on us. I wish you well in your further deliberations, and please don't ask the Premier too hard questions tomorrow, but I'm sure, I know he's delighted to be coming to see you. We had some discussions this morning, and he's so chuffed that you're meeting here in South Australia. Thank you so much.